Good evening. This is a meeting of the Committee of Adjustment for July 16th, 2024, so I'm calling it to order. The committee members in attendance this evening are Kevin Antonitis, Daniel Collins, Dylan Bailey, no, I don't see Dylan online, Fabia Billing, and myself, Adam Mottershead. Staff members present this evening are Walter Basic, Assistant Director of Planning, Michaela Bray, Intermediate Planner, Paul Nickerson, Chief Building Official, Dilhara Abawardene, Administrative Coordinator, is absent, and Sarup Sandhu, Planner, will be presenting today. Oh, okay. Yeah, Dylan's online out there. Live streaming. Members of the public are advised that our meetings are live streamed by the Town of Grimsby. Individuals and media may be audibly or visually recorded during this meeting. As a reminder, all electronic devices are to be in silent mode during our committee meeting. Now, overview of meeting procedures. The purpose of the application and relative correspondence will be heard, following which the applicant will be given the opportunity to address the application. Any person concerned with the application will then be given an opportunity to speak. At the conclusion of the discussion, the committee will render a decision and advise of any applicable conditions. Copies of decisions will be mailed to the applicant or agent and to any other person who files a written request. To request a copy of a decision, please email Dahara Abawardene, Secretary Treasurer at coa@grimsby.ca. The applicant, the Town of Grimsby, the minister, or a specified person or public body has a right to appeal either the decision itself or the conditions of consent to the Ontario Land Tribunal within 20 days of the date of giving notice under subsection 17 for a completed consent application and within 20 days of the date of decision for a minor variance application. Specified persons in certain public bodies include public utilities, but do not include an individual or community association. Everyone present will be given an opportunity to comment on the applications being heard. Please address your comments and questions to the chair. Each participant will be given 5 minutes to speak. Each participant may only speak once. If you hear your comment presented by someone else, please do not duplicate the remarks. When you're called, we ask you to state your name and address for the record. Agencies commenting on applications may request that certain conditions be imposed. Voicing objections to these conditions will not adversely affect the committee's decision. All members of the committee have viewed the properties on the agenda tonight and are familiar with the lands that are subject to the applications. Is there any members of the committee who have a pecuniary interest with respect to the applications that are before us tonight?
No.
Seeing none, there's, I believe, no requests for withdrawal or adjournment. First item on our agenda is approval of the minutes for June 19th, 2024. So I have a motion here, moved by Dan, seconded by Kevin. Resolved that the minutes of the meeting held on June 19th, 2024 be approved. Any discussion of this?
Excuse me, can you talk into the microphone? I'm hearing impaired and I can't hear half of what you're saying.
Okay, I'll try to speak louder. Resolved that the minutes of the meeting held on June 19, 2024 be approved. All those? Okay.
Is there closed captioning available?
I don't believe it. As if this will be. Is this a little better?
Yes.
Okay.
If you slow down, it'll be easier to hear you.
Okay.
Thank you.
All those in favor, say aye or raise your hand. Any opposed? That motion's carried. So the first application will be for A24-2415 Nassau Drive.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Oh, let me get close. So the first application is 15 Nassau Drive. The planning staff have reviewed this application. And so the application is to facilitate the construction of a one-story addition to the existing dwelling and a covered front porch. So the variances requested is to permit a minimum rear yard setback of 5 meters, whereas, sorry, minimize this. Whereas a minimum rear yard setback of 7.5 meters is required, as per section 7.2.1, table 11 in zoning bylaw 1445 as amended. The second variance requested is to permit a maximum lot coverage of 17%, whereas a maximum lot coverage of 25% is permitted, as per section 7.2.1, table 11, schedule 13A in zoning bylaw 1445 as amended. This is the site plan that was circulated with the notice of hearing. This is the aerial imagery for reference. This is the most recent view of the property as of June 2023, courtesy of Google Maps. We received comments from the Town of Grimsby Planning Staff, Town of Grimsby Public Works, Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority, the region, and MTO. So in terms for this reference, planning staff have reviewed the application from a planning perspective. The application meets the 4 tests set out in the Planning Act, and submit these comments to the Committee of Adjustment for their consideration. Public Works staff have no comments or conditions for the proposed minor variance. The NPCA does not mentions that the property does not contain any regulated features, and hence they have no comment. And additionally, Grimsby Fire, the region, or MTO also stated no concerns, no comments.
Okay, thank you. Is the agent or applicant for this application here? You wish to speak at anything? Come to the podium and just give your name and address, please.
All right, perfect. Good evening. My name is Robert Sorgini. I'm the owner of 15 Nassau Drive. Thank you so much for having us here today. We feel so fortunate to call Grimsby our home, and even more so that we managed to find such an incredible neighborhood. My hope is obviously to build a home for my wife and 2 beautiful children who are most deserving of a space that they can call their own home. For almost 10 years, they followed my career abroad until we decided to settle back and lay down roots in wonderful Grimsby. And the hope is obviously to build a home that we can afford for not just for the short term, but moreover for the forever home, if you will. And with much considered within the current housing market, it's also our responsibility to help the children as they become young adults. Both my wife and I have a strong value system, and although our parents are, heavily healthy and independent, we believe that it's our job and our obligation to continue with the traditions that we have within our family system. And so to our new neighbors, we believe in keeping the aesthetic with a charming bungalow, making no changes to the front lines or the side property lines, our commitment to keep the lot perfectly manicured as we are proud owners, and it's clear that our neighbors are too. For these few reasons and many more, we're asking for this minor variant to make our forever home become a reality. Thank you so much for your time.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the committee members present or online? Seeing none, is there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak to the application? Seeing none, do I have a motion on this application from the committee?
I will, Mr. Chair. I believe it meets the 4 tests as outlined in the Planning Act, so I'm prepared to make a motion that resolve that minor variance A2424 for 15 Nassau Drive to permit a minimum rear yard setback of 5 meters, whereas a minimum rear yard setback of 7.5 is required, as per section 721, table 11, as amended, and to permit a maximum lot coverage of 27%, whereas a maximum lot coverage of 25 is permitted, as per section 721, table 11. As amended, be approved as is.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a seconder on this motion? Dylan? Any further discussion on the motion?
Chair, excuse me. I think there was one condition. I see a condition on here. Does that still stand?
I don't see that one.
Which?
As-built survey following final construction to establish that all measurements, rear yard setbacks, lot coverage, encroachments, height, and final established grade are consistent. That's on my paperwork. Is that up to date?
No, I didn't see one.
No, there's no condition.
No condition?
No.
Okay.
No, and I'm fine with the motion as is without the condition.
Okay.
Any further discussion or questions from the committee? Seeing none, okay, we're going to vote on it. All those in favor say aye. Raise your hand. All those opposed? It's carried. So your application was approved. It's subject to a 20-day appeal period before it becomes final and binding. Thank you. Our next application is A25-24 Iroquois Trail.
This minor variance application is to facilitate the construction of 2 industrial buildings containing 22 units. So the variances requested are to permit a minimum interior side yard setback of 3.8 meters, whereas an interior side yard setback of 11.5 meters is required as per Section 10, Table 20 in the zoning bylaw 1445 as amended, to permit a minimum rear yard setback of 4.6 meters, whereas a minimum rear yard setback of 17.5 meters is required as per Section 10, Table 20 in zoning bylaw 1445 as amended, to permit a minimum front yard setback of 3.63 meters, whereas a minimum front yard setback of 9 meters is required as per Section 10, Table 20 in zoning bylaw 1445 as amended, to permit a minimum portion of landscaping strip to be 1.2 meters, whereas a minimum 3 meters of landscaping strip is required as per Section 6 in zoning bylaw 1445 as amended, and to permit a portion of the landscaping strip to be 2.01 meters, whereas a minimum 3 meters of landscaping strip is required as per Section 6 in zoning bylaw 1445 as amended. This is the site plan that was circulated along with the notice of hearing. This is the aerial imagery for context. And this is the current state of the property as of November 2021. So the comments received for this application are the Town of Grimsby Planning, Town of Grimsby Public Works, Niagara Region, Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority, and MTO. Planning staff have no objections to the minor variances proposed by the applicant. Planning staff have reviewed the application in context of the 4 tests set out by Section 45 of the Planning Act and are of the opinion that the minor variances requested meet the intent of the official plan and zoning bylaw and are appropriate for the development of the lands and are minor in nature. Planning staff respectfully submit these comments to the Committee of Adjustment for consideration. Public Works staff have no comments or conditions for the proposed minor variance. Regional staff, the region comments that the regional growth strategy and economic development staff do not have any objection to the proposed minor variance application, as the proposed development is consistent with the PPS and conforms with the provincial and regional policies. And in addition, they are satisfied with the local requirements of the application are met according to the town. NPCA state that the property does not contain any regulated features, and hence they have no comments. And MTO state that there is a railway nearby, but the property does not need a permit for this, so they have no comments moving forward for this application. Additionally, no comments were received from Grimsby Fire.
Okay, thank you. Is the agent or applicant for this come to the podium and just state your name and address, please? And just if you want to elaborate on the application or add any additional comments.
Sorry, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, go ahead, Dylan.
Sorry, could we have the presentation taken down? Great, thank you.
Joseph DeFilippis of DeFilippis Design Inc. at 687 Barton Street in Stony Creek. This development of 22 industrial units, the intent is these variances that we are seeking are fairly minor to facilitate for economic viability of this property. We believe what we've proposed is a good solution here, and the owners of this property, Stony Oak Properties, are excited to bring this development to Grimsby to facilitate new jobs in the town and new businesses being able to set up shop here.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the committee, either present or online? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone in the audience which to speak to the application? Yep, come to the podium and just your name and address, please.
I have some documents that I'd like to distribute. Is that possible?
Yeah, just come to the podium. What would be the document, sir?
Well, it just states what I'm talking about here verbally.
Okay, is there a copy for each of
Yeah,
us?
One of you.
Oh, okay,
to
sure.
look and review while I'm discussing. Sorry, it's not the greatest. It's only 2 days.
No
to
worries.
do this.
Thank you. And just get your name and address for the record.
Yeah. So it's Scott Reinsover.
If you just speak in the microphone, just because
sorry.
they can hear you online.
Okay, Scott Reinsover.
Okay, thank you.
And I'm the owner of 14 Iroquois Trail, the adjacent property.
Okay, any comments or questions you want to add?
Yeah, I'll go through them here. So,
Okay.
I have concerns with the amount of changes to the zoning of this property. The zoning was upgraded to prestige in employment, and this is surely not a way to maintain and allow high-density condos and significantly changing the existing zoning. So, the biggest issue is with the proposed waste bin location on the property. With the reduced setback and these waste bins creating odors, we will definitely be negatively affected. We have created a nice space for our employees. There's a concrete pad with a gazebo, barbecue, and landscaping. And this space is approximately only 30 feet from the proposed waste bin with this shortened setback. The planning department has noted this in their report and have commented as follows, and I quote, "There are no sensitive uses in the same area on the adjacent lands," unquote. There's no way this was addressed properly with the waste bins so close by the employees trying to enjoy the outdoor space that we have with odors and garbage trucks coming and going down this section by our lot line. This waste is generated by 22 businesses on a regular basis right by our outdoor space. So I don't agree with this, of course. This is completely unacceptable, and there's a very easy solution, in my opinion, to the issue. As per the site sketch that we received of the property, the waste bins could be relocated to the opposite side of the property, and there's no immediate neighbors there and even more setback space. So this, in my opinion, is very easy to solve the problem and keep the original zoning in place of the setback. The second issue is for the rear setback of the property. It is requested to be changed by approximately 42 feet, and this is also unacceptable. This is not a minor in nature and goes against any classified prestige employment zoning that's in existence on the property. It's going to high density, basically, in my opinion. So that's the second one. And the third one is the grade and the water management for this property. Our property is much lower in grade, and for the water drainage, there's a natural swell on the property that's being developed. And I don't know how this is going to be managed without seeing a proper, water management and grade engineered proposal. It's in the drawings that you have there that if the grade is graded over to our property and then shorten the setback zoning, it's only going to create more of an issue trying to, separate those grades. And then with the water there's also some pictures of the water that's, showing it pooling on the property. So it's always been kind of an issue of seeing the water run down there from the road. And so it's a major concern with that. And so the lot line shouldn't be decreased. If anything, it should be increased to help with, a possibility of needing a retaining wall or something like that to address it. So those are my issues that I have with the proposal.
Okay, thank you. Does staff or the applicant want to address the issues? If you just come to the podium, yeah, thanks.
As for the waste bins, we certainly are willing to relocate them.
Okay.
And can make them work somewhere else on the property. As for the rear yard setback and the side yard setback in relation to the drainage, this is going to undergo site plan approval. Detailed civil engineering, detailed grading plans, and site servicing plans are going to be provided, obviously, with the approval of the town. To ensure that there's no adverse effects on any adjacent properties.
Okay, thank you. Any further comments or questions, sir? Yeah.
Okay, so I guess the waste bin is not such a big issue if they're willing to relocate it. So that part is okay. We still need to see, they're still proposing changing the setback by a significant amount. So I don't know how that's going to change after, other procedures that are going to take place. I'm not familiar with them all, so I'm not, understanding the whole process that's going to happen here and where it gets approved or not approved on final being whatever the setbacks will be. So I'm understanding if you approve it today, then that will be the setback that will be applied going forward, and it will be engineered and designed, the site plan from that. So am I correct, or?
Yeah, that's what the building permit would be subject to, any conditions or the actual requirements of the minor variance.
Yeah. So I just don't think they're minor in nature with the amount that it is. And in my opinion, it doesn't meet the, the 4-condition rule either of that. So that's my argument.
Yeah, this always comes up is that minor doesn't always have to mean, it's not always a numerical number. It's, what is, X amount here on one application and Y on another application might be a big difference. So it sort of factors in all the different variables. So that's why there's no fixed numerical formula as in terms of determining what's major or what's minor.
I understand that part, but there's a lot of other issues with the property that we would have concerns with, but the other major ones that we brought up today. Traffic is another one. Trucks can't just go in and out through. So there's a lot of issues with the density, I think, of the property.
Does the applicant want to speak to those issues as well?
Mr. Chair, if I could, before you go down, do you know what your site coverage is on your building?
No, I do not know. I actually could look in my binder here. I might be able to find it.
Yeah, just curious, because the coverage isn't an issue on this one, as I understand, right? It's 36%. I don't know what the maximum is under the bylaw, but.
Yeah, I don't know off the top of my head.
Yeah.
We're not seeking variance.
Right. Okay. I'm just curious what your coverage is, percentage coverage is. If you can find out, that would.
Okay, I'll look in what I have for files here right now then.
Perhaps staff, they want to speak to the setback and density. I think it was for the rear setback.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. The issue of density, it can be measured in a couple of ways in employment areas. It can be measured by employee density, how many people are actually going to be on the site, and it can be measured by lot coverage. So lot coverage in this particular case is well under the maximum that's permitted in the zoning bylaw, which is, I believe, 50%. So they're well under the 50%. And I believe the neighboring property is actually quite a bit higher than that. But the employee density will always obviously depend on what businesses locate within the building. And businesses may come and go, may occupy 1 unit, 2 units, 3 units, an entire block. So it's an unknown factor, as is for any other site within this subdivision. In terms of the setback, and I think we specified it in the memo that we provided to you. I think there's a setback requirement that doesn't apply really to this site. It's, I believe it was based on a setback from residential area. There's no residential area abutting the site.
Okay, thank you. Any other further comments or questions from the public? Any questions from the committee members too? Oh, Dylan, go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Chair, can I just get some sort of sense, and I apologize for the not knowing the type of property. So is, looking at the site plan, is this sort of going to be a hub then for like large transport trucks in and out? We've heard about sort of traffic. Is that the kind of, I know that it can be a variety of business, but is that what this is sort of meant for, as sort of a, businesses where there's going to be a lot of loading and unloading with large sort of, 53-foot trailers and things? Or I guess I'm not familiar with that kind of development, so I don't know if you can give me a sense of what it's envisioned, perhaps.
Okay. Yep. What kind of businesses are you anticipating in there?
Push through the chair. It's not like we're not intending for there to be large loading docks. There's a loading door to be able to facilitate some inside storage. The types of businesses that would be here would be, very like smaller supply companies, trades groups that, an electrician or a plumbing company. So to give them some warehouse space, maybe a small office, and a place to keep their tools. Given the cost of property values and cost of rents, this is becoming quite popular throughout this area. And so those are the types of businesses that we would likely see here. Again, we are really not designing this to attract people that would like to unload large trailers. We're not putting that type of loading dock there. Large trailers without a loading dock are almost impossible to unload, like 53-foot containers. That's not the intent of these at all. Smaller trucks, possibly, like I said, little small supply companies, cleaning services, small service businesses.
So basically cube vans and stuff like that.
That's the biggest that we're kind of anticipating. And obviously when people are renting these spaces, they're going to see what's available and what amenities they have. It's not going to be, it's really not suitable for attracting that kind of space. Given the space of these units as well, unloading a 53-foot trailer into a 1,500 square foot unit, you're really not taking up that much space. You're taking up a lot of space of that unit. It's highly unlikely.
Okay, thank you. Any other, if you want, if you come to the podium, please, just so people online can hear you.
So the comment that was made, I disagree with, because I'm a condo owner in Oakville, and these condos would be very similar in nature, and you can't control what kind of renter you possibly have. They might tell you that they're, have restrictions even, but a truck shows up because it's on freighted and it's got a small package in it, and that has to go into that industrial unit in order to deliver it. So I totally disagree with that comment that you can control that. That's not going to happen. I see that with my own units that I rent, and it's an ongoing issue to control that. And the biggest issue with this development is that there's no in and out. So the trucks, in my opinion, a lot of them are probably going to stay on the cul-de-sac there, which is kind of convenient because it's bigger, and back in to that unit. So there's going to be a lot of road traffic, in my opinion, that's going to happen there. And we also now have another development beside us that is going to be quite large in what I understand from the new owners. So the traffic is going to go up. We have the school next door, just down the street. There's people parking on the street now from waiting to pick up their kids that are approaching on the street. So the traffic is, I don't know what fold it's going to go to, but it's quite substantial. So I don't even know what size square footage these units are, but that I don't see that on the site sketch. So.
Okay, thanks. maybe the applicant just speak to those last couple of issues.
If you could answer the question, coverage, Mr. Chair.
Sorry, did you have the answer about the coverage on your?
Sorry, I couldn't find it in the files that
Okay,
I have,
thanks.
so.
So one of the units is dimensioned. Right now, they're all shown as the same size. So they're approximately 9 meters by 15 meters. So it's around 1,400, 12 to 1,400 square feet, depending on how it ends up. The truck traffic, like I said, my opinion is that the unit size is going to dictate what happens. I can't control who does what on municipal roads. It is an industrial area. All the businesses, look, it's serving, this road does serve a bunch of industrial businesses. So I don't feel that these units are going to be greatly adding to the truck traffic.
Okay, thank you. Any further comments or questions from the public? Any further questions or comments from the committee on this? Yeah, sir, go ahead.
I have a question regarding the prestige employment and how that's going to be controlled also in this development. It seems a little gray how it's defined and how it will be enforced. So maybe if someone could comment on that from the town standpoint.
Yeah, we'll get staff to comment on that.
Okay.
Thank you, through you, Chair. It's a good question, but it's the title of the zoning category. The types of employment uses that are permitted are specified in the zoning bylaw.
Okay. And there,
So if a use is permitted, then it can go in one of the units. If it's not a permitted use, then it'd have to come for a planning application to permit the use.
okay, thank you. Sir, do you want to go in last comment?
I fully understand that part, but it didn't address what my question was. It was outside storage, specifically to outside storage. So yes, you have your permitted uses for, using the property, but the zoning says no outside storage. That's the question.
If the zoning doesn't permit outside storage, then no outside storage would be permitted.
That's what I thought. Thank you. Okay, any further questions from the committee? Seeing none, is there a motion on this application and the reasons therefore? And Dylan, go ahead.
Sure, I'll make that motion. Mr. Chair, just in terms of timing, did you want me to read the entire motion again? We talked about all the conditions at the beginning, but I'm happy to do so if we wanted to enter the record.
Yeah, I think for fulsomeness, we should do it.
Okay, sure. Be it resolved that minor variance application A25-24 for Iroquois Trail, lands known municipally as vacant lot west of and adjacent to 14 Iroquois Trail to permit a minimum interior setback of 3.8 meters, whereas a minimum interior side yard setback of 11.5 meters is required as per section 10, table 20 in zoning bylaw 1445 as amended, to permit a minimum rear yard setback of 4.6 meters, whereas a minimum rear yard setback of 17.5 meters is required as per section 10, table 20 in zoning bylaw 1445 as amended, to permit a minimum front yard setback of 3.63 meters, whereas a minimum front yard setback of 9 meters is required as per section 10, table 20 in zoning bylaw 14-45 as amended, to permit a minimum portion of landscaping strip to be 1.21 meters, whereas a minimum 3 meter landscaping strip is required as per section 6 in zoning bylaw 14-45 as amended, to permit a minimum portion of landscaping strip to be 2.01 meters, whereas a minimum of 3 meter landscaping strip be required as per section 6 in zoning bylaw 1445 as amended be approved as it meets the 4 tests with no conditions, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you, Dylan. Do I have a seconder on this motion? Fabia? Any further discussion on this motion?
Mr. Chair, I was going to suggest a condition regarding the relocation of the waste bins. I know they agreed to it verbally, but I don't know if there's a way to enforce that through a condition to make sure it's not. I mean, that was the greatest concern I don't think was addressed. The other ones I don't have a problem with, setbacks. The drainage will be delivered or considered. Coverage isn't an issue, so I'm okay with all of them, but I kind of concur with the comments raised about the location of the bin. So I'd like to add that as a condition if Dylan would reconsider his motion, or I can make a motion to add it.
Yeah, well, you can, go
Yeah,
ahead.
I'm happy to add that to the motion as a condition. I don't know if you want to specify that it needs to be on the opposite side of the property, or.
Well, I would maybe just put a minimum of 20 meters or something, and if there's another location that fits, that's a little further away than the proposed location, then they can fit it anywhere else. That works for me.
I agree to that, Mr. Chair.
Fabia, do you agree with that amendment? Or condition?
I agree. That
Okay.
sounds fine, yes.
So how would we word that exactly?
Sorry, I would suggest that a condition that the waste disposal bins be located a minimum of 20 meters away from the east side yard. And they can figure out where to put it through site plan. Because I don't think that's an issue that they'll have a chance to address during site plan without this condition.
Okay, perfect. Okay, all those in favor of the motion, say aye or raise your hand. Any opposed? That's carried. So your application was approved, but it's subject to a 20-day appeal period before it becomes final and binding. Thank you. So next application is A23-24, 256 Mountain Road.
This minor variance application is to facilitate the use of an existing structure as an accessory building. The variances requested are as follows: to permit a change in the minimum setback from a front lot line for an accessory building that is located beyond the front walls of the dwelling, whereas section 4.18H, Table 2 of Zoning Bylaw 1445, as amended, requires 6 meters, but in no case closer to the street than the front wall of the dwelling. This is the site plan that was circulated with the notice of hearing. This is the aerial imagery for context. And this is the current state of the property as of October 2022. We received comments from planning staff at the Town of Grimsby, Public Works, the Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority, Niagara Region, and MTO. So planning staff have no objections to the approval of the minor variance for relief from the zoning bylaw 1445 as amended, provided that the following conditions are met. So the first condition is the existing dwelling is converted into an accessory building, which requires the following: A, a removal of the water supply system, and B, removal of the septic tank. The second condition is that the owner obtains approval from the building department for a change of use of the existing change of use permit of the existing dwelling. 3, all work related to the conditions of the existing dwelling are completed 10 days prior to the building department inspection for the request of the occupancy of, for the request of the occupancy of the new dwelling. 4, the approved grading plan is revised to incorporate the retention of the existing dwelling. Public Works have no comment or conditions for the proposed minor variance. The region emphasizes that they can only support this application or only are able to support this application provided that the septic tank of the existing dwelling, which is to be converted into an accessory use, is decommissioned to the satisfaction of regional staff. Other than that, the regional staff, the regional growth Strategy and Economic Development staff note that they have no objections to the proposed development, as the development is consistent with the PPS and conforms to provincial and regional policies. The NPCA note that they have no objections to the existing dwelling having a change of use, remaining as it's remaining in its existing location. Technical staff indicate that there would be no flooding concerns for the subject property, and the location of the new dwelling is expected to be approved to be built in an area of unevaluated wetlands. So that being said, any future development on the property will need to be circulated for the NPCA for review and approval for this subject property. Should any future development be proposed in the rear yard, the NPCA will require a site visit to review that possible unevaluated wetland. Additionally, the NPCA proposed a condition that during the construction of the new dwelling at the rear, there is a silt fence installed during that construction process. There's also a letter of opposition from Amy and Cody Drinkwater, which I will read now. Thank you for taking the time with us today about this matter. This was sent via email. Our neighbor next door, 256 Mountain Road, has had a permit in place to build a new executive home that was required to be demolish the older home upon completion of the new one. The owner builder, Mr. Khan, wishes to keep the old house as an accessory building. We bought this house at 262 Mountain Road directly beside, knowing the demolition permit. We moved up here on Mountain Road because of the beautiful Hamlet neighborhood. Some issues we have are, how does a 17 square feet plus with a basement turn into an accessory building? What does he mean by accessory building? What is the purpose of and use of this building as storage or garage? How could this be considered only a minor variance or when it's a major change? How can he apply for this when there is a binding demolition contract in place? Our other concerns are around the grading and drainage and illegal occupancy. The house is directly beside us, and there are long-term effects for our property, including but not limited to water or waste management, overflow, rainwater damage, illegal occupancy in this auxiliary building. If this passes, can he reapply for another minor variance for this auxiliary building to turn back into a living residence, which can see the intent of the minor variance request? Lastly, if we personally were to apply for a 50 by 30 shed or auxiliary building, would that be permitted in our front yard? Would Mr. Khan's building permit be granted if he wanted to keep the older house as an accessory building? Also, there must be something written that the accessory building should be behind primary residences based on his application for this minor variance. We would really appreciate if you could join us in this meeting for support. Thank you again.
Okay, thank you. Is the owner, agent, or applicant online or wishes to speak to it, maybe to address some of the comments and some of the conditions suggested?
Good evening, the community here.
Sorry, could you just give your name and address for the record?
Shabir Khan, and I'm speaking I'm the agent for 256 Mountain Road there. Yes, there was a permit in place there in regards to demolish the existing home, but after further discussions with Linda, realized that building is a solid structure, right? It's been there over 50 years, right? It's just to remind you, community, this isn't a rural area. This is not an urban area, okay? There's many accessory buildings, even double the size. There's many other businesses on Mountain Road and all around Mountain. Let's see here. It's not interfering with any of the residents. Also, as the region and the planning department indicated that the septic system will have to be decommissioned, right? And if the residents is worried about, the neighbor at 262 Mountain Road was concerned there about being occupied. It is going to be used as an accessory building, and the definition of an accessory building, that's what it will be used as. There won't be any residents living in there. An accessory building, you cannot live inside that building, so it'll be used as storage. And if there's the accessory building is far back from the new home that's being built, and if it's in the budget, we'll even try to dress the accessory building to match the house that's at the back there. So yeah, we'll be following what this city's recommendation and the region, and that's all I have to add.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the committee members?
I guess through you, Mr. Chair, to planning. So basically, if I'm reading right, the intent of the zoning bylaw is to allow accessory dwellings no further than the front wall of the main dwelling, right? So this request is to go from 0, effectively, to what I calculate as 245 feet in front of the new dwelling, like the one he built. Like that's. I'm just trying to get clarification, making sure I understand this correctly, because it's 6 meters, but effectively they're allowing an accessory dwelling 240. If I'm doing my math right, that's a good question. 215 plus 30, so 245 feet in front of the new dwelling from 0, because 0 is the requirement now, right? Am I reading that right, Walter? Through you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. Through you, Chair. Again, as the application reads, an accessory building is permitted within 6 meters of the front lot line in this zone. However, it can't be closer to the front lot line than the dwelling. That's literally what it says, yes.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Dylan.
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. Just to the applicant, so what is your planned use then of this building? I know that you say that it's, obviously it's a solid structure, it's a livable house now, but then, the water will be removed, the septic will be removed. So what is sort of the plan that you have now for such a building? Because I must admit, I do find this a bit of an odd request.
That's a good question to ask there. As I stated before, there's many accessory buildings, even double the size, what we're even requested. We're asking for an existing building there, and this accessory building will be used for storage. There's an existing garage there, right, for storage.
All right.
That's it. You're not allowed to have multiple residents. By law, you're not allowed to have multiple residents. So there will be no use as residents of any humankind inside that building. It will be exactly what we applied for there, what the city stated there, accessory building. An accessory building is used for storage.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Any other further questions from the committee?
Through the chair, the agent, so when did you acquire the property, or when did your client acquire the property?
That was approximately 2 years ago.
So what was the intent then at that time?
Well, the intent was to build a custom home, which is 215 feet behind that building. And originally, after many discussions with Linda, right, we determined that building is a solid building. It's been there over 50 years. It's not really affecting anyone except for one neighbor there that's coming forth, right? it's a good structure. It's a solid structure. It's a good building. It could be used for the storage. And like I indicated, we're in a rural area. There's many accessory buildings. There's businesses up there on the mountain. And again, there's many accessory buildings that look like even like a tin can, I would say. But you know,
How many square feet is the new house?
it's 3,500 square feet.
Plus basement?
Yes, that's correct.
Wait, so still not enough storage space?
Well,
Just a question, because the intent was you sign an agreement to demolish it. You're building a big
Correct.
house, and now you're saying you need more storage. And I think it
Correct.
does impact the neighbor that wrote in. I don't know, I just have a problem with it. I don't think it meets the intent of the zoning bylaw anymore. You've gone from 0 to 245 feet in front of a house. So that's just my comments, Mr. Chair. I have enough.
Okay, thank you.
We're,
Go ahead.
sorry, we're talking about one neighbor that came forth, right? I spoke to a few neighbors, and they're supportive of that building even being there. And as I indicated already, even on Mountain Road there, and even on Kemp and Allen Road, all around, like there's accessory buildings, even double the size, that don't even, you would say, you're saying that that it's affecting neighbors. So anyone could come and say that, you know, those buildings too also are affecting, but that's not the case here, right? This building is half the size. It's going to be used as what we said it was going to be used as, and also what the Niagara region proposed, and the city with all their proposed. So I don't think it's a lot to ask here.
Okay, thank you. Dylan, go ahead.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, through you, my only comment is I don't think that we have a lot of accessory buildings that were former homes.
Yeah.
You know, they take a lot of different shapes, and I understand that you want this, but you know, I tend to agree with my colleague. I'm not sure that this is the intent of the zoning bylaw. And I'm also thinking in time, what neighbors and people driving by are going to see will potentially be a rundown, dilapidated old house, which is being used for storage. I mean, it's, again, just my comments, and I take yours that there are lots of accessory buildings, but I think the key piece here is that many of these accessory buildings have been up for a very, very, very long time and were not houses. So those are just my comments. Mr. Chair, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Actually, I have a question to staff, either building or planning. Is there any other examples of where there's actually a accessory building this far forward?
Yeah, through you, Chair. There is one that I recall. There's one on Park Road. Trying to think between Elm Tree Road and Sobey Road, somewhere in there. Yeah, on the west side of Park Road.
Okay, thank you. I guess one question to building is the demolition, there's a demolition agreement, correct? And I just wondering if there's been ever any people applying for such a variance after the fact?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we haven't had any requests like this in building since I've been with the town for the last 5 years.
Okay, thank you. Is any further questions from the committee?
Through the chair, I have a question. It's regarding the streetscape of this area, the front view. So when you're talking about keeping this house as an accessory building, so you will have a very large house behind it. Will the two houses match up in aesthetics, or will the house that you're building now be totally, we haven't seen any elevations, so I don't know what it's going to look like. I'm just thinking that this is actually considered a hamlet in this area. So in order to keep that look, I drive up there quite a lot. If I might see a barn that's closer to the road, but I have never seen an actual home. How are you going to change the front of that home so that it doesn't look like a home, the one in the front, and it doesn't have a front door and it doesn't have a garage? You mentioned that it might be in the budget to remaster that front. That's a big point for me, and I can see where the neighbor is concerned about that.
That's correct. That's correct. That, like I mentioned, like if it's in the budget, we were planning on dressing up the building for it to match the rear, maybe painting the bricks, you know, maybe doing some stucco on it, if it's in the budget, right? So
it's not, you haven't considered it as part of the budget?
we have considered it. We talked about that and to consider that.
Okay.
Any
All right.
further,
Thanks for your answer.
any further comments or questions for the applicant? No, the public will get an opportunity to speak in a moment. Any further questions from the committee for the applicant? No? Okay, is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak to this matter? And just come to the podium, give your name and address for the record, please.
Hi there, I'm Cody Drinkwater, 262 Mountain Road. Our main concerns, our letter was read by we intended to speak today, so a lot of the points were touched on already. We feel like we bought a house for our family, intend to live there for the next 20 years. This house is directly out front of our bedroom window. We look at it every morning. Currently weeds 6 feet tall, over my head at least. Dilapidated porch on the back. I don't think there's reasonable intent that this is going to be a storage building. If anything, I think it's going to be falling apart. We find with the 4 tests that we talked about, I don't think it matches the criteria of our neighborhood. You look at all executive homes, there are a few older homes, and you know what? If that house was being occupied and maintained and that's someone's home, we're grateful for that. Like, you don't need to have a 2,400 square foot house. You look after it, you fit into the neighborhood, and we think that would be great. Those are some of the big things. Now, we do currently have a rainwater issue in our neighborhood. Now, the neighbors, so he would be looking at the street to the left-hand side of me. To the right-hand side of me, we do have a drainage issue. He was flooded out, I believe, a full year ago. Now we have 2 dwellings pushing the overflow stormwater to our house, which now his property is to be higher than my left side window, which is kind of a walkout. Obviously, that wasn't put into the design when it was first kind of set up, but now we have to deal with that. I think it's going to come to a cost of me to bring up my side of the property, and I'm not sure if I'm even allowed to bring in dirt to my property with some of the rules that are in place to be able to do this. I think I have to now have a permit to bring in dirt and maintain this side of my property. And then just speaking to, you're right, absolutely, there is no illegal residence allowed until that happens, right? Until this, a year from now, is now reapplied to be a house, right? And septic system put back in. And now we have multi-family residents beside us. Those are some of the things that I think, without repeating the other stuff that was already written in and read out in the meeting, I think those are major concerns to us as the neighbors.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the committee for the delegate? Mr. Khan, do you want to address maybe some of the concerns?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I was going to bring this up, but I understand the neighbor there, Cody there at 262's concern there. Before the new residence that's being built, where it's being built, there was this was before Cody purchased that property 262. Okay, there was a barn, an existing barn, and we're talking about keeping that existing barn, but unfortunately, that barn used to get flooded over by 262 when they built. Okay, and so that was out of the question to keep, because you get 2 feet of water in that barn. Also, there was multiple trees that was flooded over between the 2 property lines, because there was supposed to be a swale, but there was clearly no swale between the 2 property, and that was all the expense of 256 incurred all that expenses, right? So there was talked about keeping the existing barn. So that house at the front there that we're asking the community here for to keep. It's like I said before, this is a rural area. There's many different businesses on Mountain Road. There's even a marijuana, facility, a marijuana facility down the street from there, right? And there's many businesses and there's many accessory building that's double the size of this building. So what we're asking for here, I don't think it's unreasonable. It's a solid building, it's a solid structure. We'll follow the direction of the city of Grimsby and work with them here.
Okay,
That's
thank
all
you. Thank you. Dylan, go ahead.
Can I just ask, I'm assuming that as part of site plan for the new property that drainage will be addressed. We keep hearing about drainage. I know it's a side issue, but is that, I'm assuming, will be dealt with via site plan with the new building or the new dwelling that will be built behind the one we're discussing tonight?
Yeah, staff.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So just to be clear, there is a current dwelling under construction that has a building permit. Part of that building permit was the submission of a lot grading and drainage plan that was approved by our Public Works Department. So one of the comments was if this variance was approved, then a revised grading plan would have to be provided and reviewed, because the grading, as you can see from the property, I believe the intent was to sort of raise the grade where this current dwelling is, but now the grade will continue to be lower on that side. So as far as the comment regarding a barn that was there, that barn would have also been in the front yard. So that would have had to go through the variance process at that time if it was wanted to be kept at that point.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions from the committee? Anyone else in the audience wish to speak to this matter? Or have any further comments? Yeah, go ahead, sir.
I just want to speak to the demolition permit. I guess you would think that would be a binding contract in order to build the house. This one needs to be removed by, I believe it was September 11th. What kind of precedence does that set if we don't have to execute on these permits, I guess? Does that kind of allow, is now anyone that builds a house can just kind of skirt around the rules that are put in place, I guess?
Okay, thank you. Any further questions from the committee? Anyone else in the public wish to speak to this? Oh yeah, go ahead, Mr. Khan.
Yes, the neighbor there, Cody there, brought up some good points. So I'm gonna bring up a point here, which I wasn't gonna bring up. I didn't want to talk about neighbors or what they're doing. We'll just slowly here just to talk about this existing building to use as a utility building. I understand Cody's, he built a pool in the rear.
Yeah, I'm going to interrupt you. You just got to stick to the application at hand.
Yeah.
So, yeah, if you're going to talk about another issue, that's something you have to take up with planning or zoning.
Yeah. Okay. No, because it has to do about accessory buildings, right? So, and it has to do about plumbing. So in order to build an accessory building, you need to have permits as long as you have plumbing and all that. So, okay.
Okay, any further questions from the committee? Seeing none, do I have a motion on this and reasons therefore?
Mr. Chair, I'm prepared to make a motion on this. I got to make sure I got the right one here. Okay, resolve that minor variance application A2324 for 256 Mountain Road to permit a change in the minimum setback from a front lot line for an accessory building that is located beyond the front wall of the dwelling, whereas section 418H, table 2, as amended, requires 6 meters, but in no case closer to the street than the front wall of the dwelling. be denied or refused. The reasons being it does not meet the intent of the official plan, being a hamlet designation, does not meet the intent of the zoning bylaw, which is to allow accessory dwellings to the rear or at least no further than the front wall of the dwelling. This is inverting that from 0 to 245 and is not appropriate for the development use of the property and is not minor in nature.
Okay, thank you very much. We have a seconder, Dylan. Any further discussion on the motion? If not, all those in favor, raise your hand and say aye. Any opposed? So the application was denied. So you have a 20-day appeal period before it becomes final and binding. Thank you.
Thank you.
Will that clear out half the room?
I'll just let him clear out. I'll just let people clear out. Okay, so next application would be A2224, 30 Viking Drive.
This application is to facilitate the construction of a two-story dwelling with attached garage. The following variances are requested. To permit a minimum front yard of 7.1 meters, whereas a minimum front yard of 10.85 meters is required as per section 7.2.1, table 11, in zoning bylaw 1445 as amended. To permit a minimum rear yard setback of 7.0 meters, whereas a minimum rear yard setback of 7.7 meters is required as per section 7.2.1, table 11, in zoning bylaw 1445 as amended. To permit a maximum yard encroachment into the required rear yard of 0.7 meters of a chimney breast, whereas a minimum yard encroachment of 0.5 meters is permitted as per section 4.9A in zoning bylaw 1445 as amended. To permit a maximum lot coverage of 32%, whereas a maximum lot coverage of 25% is required as per section 7.2.1, table 11 of schedule 5A in zoning bylaw 1445 as amended. This is the site plan that was circulated with the notice of hearing. And this is the aerial image for context. The following agencies were responded with comments: the Town of Grimsby Planning, Town of Grimsby Public Works, the NPCA, and MTO. So planning staff have no objections to the approval of the minor variances for relief from the zoning bylaw as amended with respect to the front yard setback, rear yard setback, yard encroachment of a chimney breast, and a maximum lot coverage. The following condition is suggested for final approval. This condition is that staff requests that the proponent, the staff requests that the proponent provide an as-built survey following final construction to establish that all measurements of rear yard setback, lot coverage, encroachment, height, and final established grades are consistent and compliant with what is permitted on site. Public Works staff have the following conditions. Town staff will require that a lot grading and drainage plan demonstrating the existing drainage patterns for the lot and a 5-meter beyond property line and stormwater runoff plan will. Runoff will not negatively impact nor rely upon neighboring properties. Essentially, please ensure that all roof downspouts, proposed swales, etc. are shown on this plan. Should that the applicant propose any changes to the servicing, a site servicing plan will be required. Please be advised that as per town standard, only one service connection per lot is permitted. The NPCA note that the property does not contain any regulated features and they have no comments. Additionally, the MTO and the region also state no comments. There are 3 letters of opposition that I will read. So the first letter of opposition is from Andrea Morel Martins, and that came in on July 11th through email. Good day, I am the homeowner of 41 Viking Drive, and I am submitting my complaint in regards to the above address seeking approval for a variety of minor variances. I am opposing the approval of the requested variances with the following concerns. I will start by stating that the builder has not acted in good faith. He chose the route to build first and seek approval later. In my opinion, these are not minor variances, and these are considerable changes that I would call a major variance, especially in regards to the lot coverage increase of 32% and the reduction of the front yard to 7.1 meters. The massive build does not suit the character of our neighborhood. It is looming far above the homes on Viking Drive and Forest Avenue. It is not a reasonable build. It does not benefit our street. It is determinate. It looks like a mini apartment building, as many people have commented the same. We have lost the green space, the trees, the privacy. With the extension of the frontage and the height along the increase of the building and windows and their size, we have all lost our privacy. We also have their indoor lights blasting into our home, and the increase of the noise is also a factor. We are very angry and concerned with this. We do not believe this is a single-family dwelling, as the builder has stated, nor it is even a nanny or in-law suite addition. To many residents, how many residents has this build been planned for? Where will the number of vehicles be parked? On street, in front of the homes? In closing, I'm questioning why the town allowed this monstrosity to be built when a resident on Forest Avenue immediately notified the town when the original home was torn down. They expressed concerns of what was being built as of lack of visible permits. The town assured that there are all permits, they have all the right permits. Yet here we are. We are fully aware Grimsby is a growing community and additions are more common and needed. However, this is not reasonable addition or a reasonable new build. This is a mini apartment forced upon a quiet neighborhood that values large front lawns, trees, ample backyard space, and privacy. I would like to believe that the town take all concerns opposing these variances with respect to the residents deserve not only a current homeowners, but to preserve the integrity of the neighborhood for future residents. As we know, high density is a new norm, and the charm of our neighborhoods such as ours are no longer built. The second letter of opposition came from Marianne Hennon. This came in on July 15th, this came in on July 15th, also through email. Hello, my name is Marianne Hennon, and I live at 10 Forest Road in Grimsby, a home that I've owned for almost 38 years. I recently became aware of the meeting tomorrow regarding the above property. I did not receive a letter myself, but I am informed by a neighbor. I often walk past that home and at late have noticed the monstrosity that is being built at that address. I have wondered how this is possible in the neighborhood that has bungalows or modest two-story homes, and why this is even being built or being allowed to be built. This property looks to be a three-story building towering over the houses around it. Perhaps it's intended to be a multi-family dwelling. What I'm concerned about is the height. I put myself in the shoes of the people living on either side, and I know I would not want to live there or purchase their homes. I believe they have been devalued by allowing this huge house to be built on this lot. It is changing the integrity of the neighborhood. I would respectfully ask that at least the top floor be removed. Thank you for your consideration. The final letter also is received by mail. This is by Greta McGinnis. I have received the notice of hearing for the above property. The variance requested do not address the elephant in the room, mainly the height of the residence. The application says that the residence is to be a two-story dwelling. This is certainly not the normal height of a two-story home. The attic space would easily be considered a third floor. It is high enough to accommodate several rooms. Then adding in a tall roof space, the residence is clearly much higher than any other residence in the neighborhood. The home directly to the west of the property is a two-story dwelling that is a good 1.5 stories shorter. The height of 30 Viking looks completely out of place. I have lived in the neighborhood for over 36 years, and adding such a monster property certainly does change the look and feel of this established family neighborhood. I can only imagine how much light is lost of the homes east of this property. I am all for improving the properties, like adding a second story, but this is not a second story unit. This is disproportionately taller than most two-story dwellings. I would ask that the third story be removed to better suit the favor of the neighborhood. Thank you for your attention.
Okay, thank you. Is the owner or the agent wish to speak to the application? Maybe address some of the comments and some of the concerns and also the conditions. Just state your name and address for the record, please. Thanks.
Sorry, my name is Jonathan Netta of Netta Designs. I am the designer and agent representing the homeowners of 30 Viking Drive. I'm the designer and agent representing the homeowners of 30 Viking Drive, a wonderful growing family that are excited to reside in the beautiful growing town of Grimsby. Planning staff have done an outstanding job in providing background information on the project and summarizing with respect to each variance. The staff report is very supportive, and I graciously hope that the committee can consider and agree. I strongly believe what we are proposing is very suitable for the neighborhood and will result in a very curb-appealing home that the homeowners will take great pride in. I would like to take a moment to address some of the letters from the neighbors. By no means are we proposing a mini apartment. Respectfully, these neighbors have not been presented floor plans for security and privacy reasons, but planning and building have certainly seen the floor plans to know that single-family residence is what's being proposed, a modest 4-bedroom home serving a growing family. Regarding the loss of green space that is commented on, I will note that the house at 41 Viking, who has voiced the concern, is set back even closer to the front yard than what we are requesting, as demonstrated in page 89 of the staff report. House number 41 is set back 7.5 meters versus our proposed 7.65 meters. This further demonstrates our consistency with the neighboring homes. The homeowners at 30 Viking Drive plan to provide plenty of sod and softscaping, which will be well maintained throughout the year and will enhance the beauty of the neighborhood. With regards to the parking, I will note that our proposal allows for 4 parking spaces, two within the garage and then 2 on the driveway as well, which is well beyond what the bylaw requires. With regards to the height, I will note that zoning has performed a full review and we are in full compliance with the height requirements. Height is not a variance we are seeking. With regards to the 3rd floor attic that is referenced, I would like to be very clear that this will not be a living space. The room heights, in fact, do not even comply with the OBC and therefore cannot be considered a usable room. The ceiling height in the room is only about 5 feet in height, and it's intended to be just a mechanical service room serving the house. Great pride and hard work have been put into the design of this home, and the facade will be constructed with high quality materials which will present favorably. I'm a very experienced designer, having done much work in Grimsby, and I always do my best to design characteristic homes of beauty that blend in well while standing out in their own unique way. I'm happy to answer any questions the committee or members of the public may have. Thank you very much for your consideration of our application.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the committee? Go ahead, Dylan.
Through you, Mr. Chair, and I'll leave it to you to see if this is appropriate, but I'd like some comments, please, from staff or maybe the agent or both as to how we got here. Because I'm sorry, I'm just not clear on this, and I if this is just sort of a case of we'll do what we want and then we'll ask for forgiveness later, or I just don't know how we are where we are right now and what's the state of the property now. I mean, I have seen it from outside of the fences. But I just want to know, how did we get to having an existing dwelling that was there to have it being torn down and this structure being built, and now we're dealing with these things?
Yeah, that's an appropriate question. I'll ask the applicant to first give comments and then staff.
The house drawings were originally submitted and approved for building permit. Sure. Sorry, so the house drawings were originally submitted to the town and were approved for building permit. It was, what we were originally proposing was to maintain the existing foundation of the home. During construction, there were some deviations made to the foundation, which has resulted in the stop work order. And a new foundation was installed in place of the existing foundation. The reason being just the foundation was it was discovered to be in very poor condition with cracks and water damage. As such, the foundation walls were replaced. While we understand, of course, in hindsight, that revised plans should have been submitted to reflect availability of the concrete contractor was extremely limited, and work was done in an expedited manner. We are very apologetic in this regard, but just hoping to make the best of where we stand and come to a resolution.
Okay, thank you. And maybe staff wants to make building plan. Just want to comment on the history, maybe how we got to where we are.
Okay, thank you, through you, Chair. So Mr. Netta was correct in a building permit was issued to basically rebuild the house from the existing foundation up with additions and a second story. Through the process, we weren't notified of certain stages of inspection. So this actually got brought to the attention of the building department almost at the stage where it's at now, so at the framing stage. Once it was discovered that the drawings had changed, we were dealing with both the owner and the agent to confirm if any existing foundations remained, because that was the impression that the owner and the agent had been giving us, and the revised drawings that they submitted showed that. So I had asked that some of the foundations were excavated to ensure, or to show that the existing condition was, or the existing foundations were there. That was dictating some of the setbacks. So I was provided pictures. I asked for additional pictures, and then it was confirmed that all the construction was new. So it was a demolition and rebuild. So that's where we're at now, where as being a new dwelling, requiring to conform to the current zoning regulations.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the committee?
If I can, through the chair, Mr. Nicosoy, I have a question for Paul. Regarding the height, now they state that they comply with the height. I find that hard to believe, but when I was on site, where is height measured and what's the definition of height? Is it the grade or the average grade, or I know there's a definition of the peak, it's an average peak height, but from where on the bottom, maybe Walter or Paul can answer that. How does it meet that?
Thank you. It's where the house is closest to the street at that point, the grade at that point relative to the midpoint of the slope of the roof.
So it's only, just for clarification, Walter, that's only one point, is the point that's closest to the road or the lot line, I guess, the front lot line?
I believe that's correct. So it would be the, looking at the house, it would be the part beside the garage.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Through the chair, again, to Walter, sorry to keep you up here. Can you confirm that they say that Mr. Netta said it is in compliance with height, and the height variance would be required over 9 meters? Is that correct?
Yeah, we've reviewed the plans extensively, and the conclusion that we've come to is that the plans meet the height requirement.
But would the height requirement, can we confirm what that is for this zoning? Do you know off the top of your head?
I could guess. It's less than the maximum permitted by the zoning bylaw. I don't want to guess because I don't want to give you the wrong number. based on memory.
Yeah, so Kevin, go ahead.
Just, that's all right, you'll have your chance, sorry to interrupt. But, so, just if I'm clear, if they want to build a taller house, taller than the definition allows, they could modify the definition by pushing dirt up against the point that you're measuring it from, whether it's 1 foot, 2 foot, 5 feet, and say you got to measure it from that exact knob or hill that I've created, and that meets the height bylaw definition. Is that what you're saying?
I don't want to engage in a what if scenario. I don't think it's appropriate in this particular case. I don't think that was the situation that was done in this particular case. No. The grade looks like it was. The grades look like they were prepared in a thoughtful manner, based on what's appropriate for that particular building and the site. It wasn't a situation where a mound was built at that point. No.
No, but when I attended the site and it was pointed where it was measured to, that point is like 2 feet above the average grade in the area. So it's not a hypothetical, it's an actual, that's what's happening. It's being measured from a point that's about 1 to 2 feet, I'm thinking 2 feet above the average grade in the area. And then the garage is even lower. So I guess the effect is that it has this overbearing look of the street, which is what we're hearing, and I'm sure we're going to hear from the residents. The effect is that it's much bigger than it should be if you met the intent of the height bylaw requirement definition.
Yeah.
Not you, sorry, I'm not accusing you, Walter. It's through to the owner or the agent. But anyways, I just find it's easy to get around the definition by just doing a few modifications to one particular location.
Sorry to interrupt, but you might be right, but that doesn't appear as though what was the situation in this particular case, because the grade was consistent on the plan, consistent across, and again, the grading's not completed on the site, but the grading was consistent across the entire frontage of the lot, or of the house. So the scenario you describe isn't the situation here. Thank you.
Any other further questions from the committee for the applicant or the agent? Seeing none, is there anyone in the public that wishes to speak to this matter? If so, please come to the podium and just give your name and address for the record, please.
Bottom right. Okay. My name's Mike Ash. I live at 32 Viking Drive. I don't know how we got here. They're much closer to the road than the house used to be next door to me. It overwhelms my house. The neighbor on the other side, it's even worse because it extends into the backyard. They've lost all their privacy. As far as measuring the height of the house, 8.99 meters, they're telling us they're 3/8 of an inch below what's allowed. And what are we using for the height? If you look at the foundation protection, it's 2 feet above the ground at the porch. You're 7 meters or 7 point whatever meters from the road. The front porch is 5 meters from the road. There's a room under there. That's his mechanical room. There was nothing left of that house, not a stitch, because I looked in the hole every day. This thing went up lickety split, because I even commented to one of the neighbors that I can't believe how fast this is going. 70 truckloads of dirt left that property. And within 4 or 5 days, there was a foundation there. And then lickety split, we were framing the house. And it's not 2 stories, it's 3 stories high. And what you're using for it's halfway up the roof. Well, that's questionable too, because we've stepped the roof back in, then we've run a soffit and fascia out, and now we've gone up again. And if that's a storage room, what do you need a big fancy window for? This has all been shady from the word go. As soon as he pulled the last of the foundation out, he should have stopped. And he should have come to the town, because if he would have presented what he's got there now, he would have been told no. 25% lot coverage. He wants 32. That's not just 7%. He wants 24% more than is allowed. That's what that is. I just don't know how you can let this go. And if you do, then the rest of this town knows not to apply for a building permit, just build whatever you want, and then after the fact, ask for forgiveness, be a nice guy, pay a little fine, and you're good to go. That's not right.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Anyone else from the audience wish to speak? We're just going to have a few members of the audience speak, and then maybe the agent applicant can respond to all the concerns.
Okay. My name's Andrea Sloan. I live at 28 Viking Drive. My family's lived there since 1975. So when you talk about the character of the neighborhood, we know it. That house does not fit in. It never will. I do not understand how they were able to do it. From the get-go, we called the town and would say, they're ripping this down, they're doing this, they're doing this. All we kept being told is there was a permit in place. There wasn't. We know that now. So how are we supposed to trust our building department and our town if they're not telling us the truth and allowing this to happen? I would love for you to come over to our yards and see what our houses look like now. I don't care if it's one family or 5 families. What I care about is the character of the neighborhood. It is huge. It looks like the Queen has built a house to look down on all of us, and it's disgusting. There was absolutely no respect for the town bylaws. There was no respect for the neighborhood, and I don't think he will ever respect the town. He will continue to build in this area because he knows he can get away with it. And it's up to you to change that.
Thank you. Next, just come to the podium and speak. Just give your name and address for the record. Yeah, right there.
I don't want to speak, but it looks as if some of you have not seen what the situation is. Have you visited the site?
Yes, we have.
We all did, yeah.
This is what it looks like from the front, from the road. We've only got 3
Okay.
This is the previous house that was knocked down. We have not seen a demolition permit for it, by the way.
And just need your name and address, please.
Sanjoy Acharya, 26 Viking Drive. What I've given the gentleman and lady there are some photos which show what the state is now and what it was before it was demolished. And we haven't seen a demolition permit for that, by the way. I believe there should have been one. And you can see how much area there was around the old side split. There's even a kidney-shaped pool at the back. It's a nice, comfortable house, comfortable height, comfortable size, which blended in with either side with all our houses. But now I have also left them a photo of how it looks like as it is built now. It's just a monster. Anybody can see that from the road. And I don't want to say any more. The immediate neighbors are the ones that are really affected. But even our sunlight has been cut off. I can't see the sunrise anymore from the east. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Any other further comments from the public? Okay, come to the podium, please. And can I just get your name and address for record, please?
I think we're okay. Okay. I'm Mrs. Dunlop. I live on Forest Road. I live kitty corner, the backyard's kitty corner to this building. My address is that this is a much higher building. There is going to be runoff. The house next door, number 30 Viking, may get flooded in the basement. I had a house built at 18 Forest Road. The house next door was removed and a house built on the foundations 3 years ago. My carport, my yard got flooded because this is a much higher building. The new neighbors that moved in were kind enough, they addressed this problem, but it is a problem that should be looked at. A higher building has a greater volume of water coming down. There's not much difference between where the border of the house is to the next house. There's going to be runoff. Now this building, I don't know how many square feet it is, but it is a 3-story. It was applied for as a 2-story. That's wrong. Now, I don't know how this happens, that a house can be built and then applied for variance afterwards. There's something wrong. Either the designer or the owner figured, hey, we'll do what we want, we'll get it sorted. You know, people are stupid, they won't do anything about it. We've got it built, they'll let it go. I think something should be done about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the audience wish to speak? Just come to the podium and give your name and address for the record, please. Thanks.
My name is Kevin, and I live at 28 Viking with Andrea. And first off, as soon as that machine pulled onto that yard and started pulling that house down, we called the city. All of us. Sanjoy, myself, everybody. Not once, not twice. I called 3 times myself. And we were told, don't worry, it's going to be a normal size house. So I don't know where you're saying that you were notified when the roof was on it. That's false. Because we were calling immediately. Not a permit. You have total disdain for the rules of this town. If everybody treated the town like you did, it would be flippin' anarchy. So I hope nobody ever applies for a permit for this town again, because you're letting this guy get away with it. Not only that, this guy, he didn't clean the street once. That street was muddy from end to end. And we called about that and we were told there was nothing you could do about it. He didn't clean the street once. People were dragging mud into their driveways and mud into their houses. And he didn't do anything. He cut down a tree that didn't belong to him. He burned plastic and garbage in the backyard. And you know what? When he was told to put it out, you know what he did? He went into the Johnny on the spot and he got water out of the sink to try and put the barrel out. And when he ran out of water doing that, you know what he did? He got a coffee cup and got mud puddle water to try and put the fire out. If you allow this, you're setting a terrible precedent. He doesn't even live in this community. You can't allow this. If you let this happen, everybody is going to be doing it. Everybody. Somebody dropped the ball. Many people dropped the ball. And we're looking to you folk to straighten it out. Because I don't care, I don't know where you think that this fits into the neighborhood.
Sorry, sir, you just direct the comments through me.
It doesn't fit into the neighborhood by any definition, anywhere. And there's communities all over Ontario that are stopping this. monster builds, bunkers. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the audience wish to speak? Okay, maybe the agent or the applicant wants to come and respond to some of the comments and concerns.
So just to clarify about the lot coverage, so it's a 7% overage that we're asking for. And yeah, I just want to clarify that it's resulting from the rear porch that is excavated versus unexcavated, meaning if we were to fill it with soil, then it would not be counted towards the lot coverage, in which case the lot coverage, it would not be a variance and it would actually be in compliance. From a visual massing perspective, it doesn't, to me, if it's filled with dirt versus, if it's filled with dirt versus a storage space, it's the same visual impact to the neighbors. With regards to the front yard setback, we did retain the surveyor to attend the street to take some points to a few of the neighboring properties. You'll see in page 99 of the staff report, there's an illustration that shows there's 5 surrounding houses that show the setbacks from the front of the house to the property line. And you'll see that what we have proposed in terms of the setback is very consistent with what the neighbors are. And it is also consistent with the previous original house, the front yard setback. So we had a surveyor attend to, there's a measurement here of 7.65 meters, which is what, the same as the build form is 7.65 meters to the front, with the exception of there's a window projection, which it's a bit of a gray area in the bylaw where if it doesn't have foundation, then it's allowed to encroach into the setback. So hypothetically, if we didn't have foundation under that window projection, then it would be in compliance with the encroachment. And the porch as well is additionally allowed an encroachment, which is, yeah, so it wouldn't be the same setback requirement for the front porch versus, sorry. So the front porch is allowed an allowable encroachment as well, similar to the bay window. So like majority of the front wall is the 7.65 meters to the front, and then we've actually set the garage back to be a further setback from the property line.
Okay, I just sort of jotted down some notes. Make some comments with the height, the grading, and how many square feet is the actual plan?
So the attic itself is, just to clarify that as well, it's not, majority of the roof is made from conventional trusses, meaning you can't actually walk around in it. There's framing members everywhere you walk. There's only a small portion that's above the garage on the left side of the house that hosts a small room about 8 feet wide with really low ceiling height at 5 feet. It's strictly for the purpose of accessing the mechanical equipment that's on that floor. It's accessible only by an attic hatch. There's no stairs or anything leading up to it. Yeah.
How many square feet is the house?
Is the house itself? It's 3,600 square feet above grade.
And what about the grading? What's the grading plan? If this
So a grading plan has been prepared and submitted to Public Works, and they have reviewed the grading plan as well.
Yeah, because when I was over at the site today, I noticed, I guess the west fence, it just seems like there's a lot of, soil right up against the fence that it just actually starts to pile up.
It's still, like, the grading is still a work in progress. Due to the stop work order, there's construction can't really proceed until we get the revised permit.
Okay, thanks. Who's doing the construction? Because you're obviously the designer, and usually the designer wouldn't head up the actual construction. Who's doing the construction?
It's Mario Glavina. He's here with me today.
So that would be,
Mario Glavina.
so that's the owner then?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. Any further questions or comments from the committee?
Yeah, through you, Chair. Back to the height requirement. So what's leading me to this is one of the conditions is that the proponent submit an as-built survey following final construction. I have an issue with that. I looked up the zoning bylaw, 1445, table 11, page 80. 9 meters is the maximum height. So when we exceed 9 meters, we would have to get a variance. This drawing is 8.99 meters, which I was stated before is 3/8 of an inch under the zoning. Now, just when I review the plan that was submitted, I see that we have 10'1" as the first story wall and 9'1" as the second. Well, a 10'1" wall is made up of 3 plates and a 1/16 and 5/8 stud, a pre-cut stud. If you add the 3 plates and add up, you're going to get to 10'1"1/4. That's the as-built, that's the actual height of that wall. So right now, there's a 1/4 difference from what the plan shows and what this is. And we're playing with tight tolerances. And if we go to the 9 foot, it's the same thing. It's a 104 and 5/8 stud and 3 plates. That's 9'1" 1/4. So that's a 1/2 inch. Now we're talking 1/8 of an inch, maybe over the zoning. Not a big deal, right? We're not going to split hairs over 1/8 of an inch, but it just leads me to wonder what else on here isn't presenting as what I'm seeing it from the street. So I'm having a hard time letting the idea of letting this build continue until final construction to establish that all of this was met, because then what? What happens if we get to that point where you've invested all of this money on these finishes, the windows are in, it's complete, and now what? What do we do after that? So I don't know if that's a question that goes to planning. This is just kind of what I'm thinking when I look at this. I would like the as-built a survey right now to know what exactly are we dealing with. Let's deal with all of the variances. And so I would suggest we defer until that point, but I'm going to leave it to the rest of the committee or for planning to kind of speak to that.
Okay, do you want to make a motion or you just want to hold off on it? Okay. The comments from staff?
Sorry, maybe you could specify your question a little more so I can answer it accurately.
So when I look at the plan being 3/8 under the height requirement, and what I understand about construction, the as-built would be an 1/8 inch over, so it'd be 9.01, so not a big deal, but it gets over. So what happens, and that's just a small, again, we're talking 1/8 of an inch, but if this is the precedent of other things that could be more, not in compliance with what we're looking at right now, and they go all the way to built, complete, what happens if they're not in compliance?
Okay, so the scenario you're describing is everything's complete. In order to satisfy the conditions of an approved variance application, they have to submit a survey which identifies the actual height of the building. In that scenario, if there's a deficiency, the owner, as with any other situation like that, has one of 2 options. One is to make another application for a variance or to comply with the zoning requirement.
Thank you. Yeah, and again, that kind of helps me in what I'm thinking about this, in that why go any further than right now?
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Oh, yeah, if you want to respond, sir.
So just to clarify, a surveyor has attended the site after the construction was completed to verify all the setback and height dimensions. So the site plan you see before you has been verified by a surveyor, and those dimensions are 100% accurate.
Okay, thanks. Actually, I have a question to planning. Just in the planning report, it says, they maintain the intent of 3472 for general built form, especially with respect to lack of undue adverse impacts on adjacent properties, and that they recognize the existing built form character. Can you just expand on that a little bit?
The existing built form character as it applies to the variances that are being proposed, which are setbacks.
Okay, what about the neighborhood itself? Neighborhood character?
With regard to the setbacks. So if there's a proposed reduction in the front yard, so how does that proposed front yard impact the character of the other front yards in the neighborhood? So specifically, that's what that's referring to.
Okay. Also,
and it's not referring to height, it's not referring to volume of building, because that wasn't part of the application that was being assessed.
Yeah, what about overlook and shadow? How is that assessed?
The height wasn't an application.
Okay, because when I attended, I don't know if you attended the site or not, but there's a rear, there's a rear room in the back that has a huge window that overlooks the property on, I think it's called Forest Drive. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's a concern I have, as there's significant overlook at that height.
Sorry, through your chair, the window you're referring to, is it on the second floor?
Yes, correct.
Okay. And the second floor window, if there was a two-story building built, we don't necessarily, it's one house next to another house, and in terms of adverse impacts, we review it on the basis of one window overlooking somebody's backyard, which is a very common situation in pretty much every subdivision in Grimsby. So you have potential overlook. So unless there's a barrier built in between taller buildings, again, a two-story building is a permitted height, and that's what we evaluate. It's a permitted height. Windows are permitted to face backyards. You're going to have an overlook impact, but it's not an unreasonable impact. It's an impact that should be expected.
Okay, thanks. I also went back to looking back in the old case files of OMB, and we had, maybe Kevin remembers, Garden Drive. Yeah, that was just, which I believe was around the corner from here. And at that, you had a similarly well-established neighborhood. Low rise, I think they may be all bungalow. I'm not sure if there's any split level like there is on Viking. And the planning opinion at the time was that the proposed property, I know it's a different property, but the general opinion was that it would become a destabilizer in the neighborhood. So, I mean, our official plan hasn't materially changed, our zoning bylaw hasn't materially changed. So I just sort of can't reconcile how that planning opinion, which was accepted by the OMB and was the town's planning opinion at the time, has changed.
If you like, I can go back, and I don't recall that one specifically, but I can go back and review that particular application.
Yeah.
Would
you want me to read you part of it? Yeah, it was basically they had to go through with the appeal because they did get a permit for as of right, but they didn't withdraw the appeal. And it was Michael Seaman and Janice Hogg who did the, I guess, the presentation on behalf of the town. Let me just see 1 second here. Yeah, it just says the planner opined that the application didn't meet the general intent and purpose of the official plan because the proposed variances would allow a two-story home within the neighborhood comprise exclusively of small single-story homes, which in her view would be contrary to the policies of the OP, which require built forms compatible with the established Garden Drive streetscape. The OP requires that new development does not act as a destabilizer in a long-established long-established neighborhood consisting of small bungalows with building depths of only 10 meters. And I believe on Viking, most of them are about 10 meters. More specifically, the OP requires that new development exercise a compatible relationship with adjacent homes to ensure that the built volume of a new home conforms to the scale and appearance of adjacent housing. The planner stated that the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw was similarly not met because the zoning bylaw enforces performance standards to ensure that ongoing neighborhood compatibility and built form consistency, and these objectives would not be met if the variances were approved. So just sort of...
Yeah, thank you for that. Again, well, you have to look at the specific circumstances of that site. Were there two-story homes in that neighborhood? What were the lot coverages in that neighborhood? What were the volumes of the buildings built in the neighborhood? Side yard setbacks, rear yard setbacks. Circumstances may change. And again, I don't want to comment on somebody else's memo that was prepared.
Well, it's actually a decision of OMB, but yeah, I just can't reconcile this development with this neighborhood. It's sort of the same sort of thing. It's not compatible with adjacent housing. It's not a question, just a comment. Any other further questions or comments from the committee? Anyone in the audience wish to speak? If we could just go ahead. Yeah.
Through the chair.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, am I okay to speak? Okay, so two points.
Sorry, can you give your name and address for the record,
My
please?
name is Paula Davies Barlow. I grew up on Forest Road. I'm devastated to see what's happened to the neighborhood. I'm interested to know if this happened at one of the council or one of the staff neighborhoods, if this would have got as far as it did, is my first comment that I would like to make. The second comment I would like to make, and I don't want to move away from, is that we had a builder come from out of town and try to ruin our neighborhood. They made a mockery of the situation. They ignored the permit. They ignored, what they were allowed to do. They just went ahead and did it, and I realize that this was said before, but we can't let this happen again. We cannot let these builders come in and ruin our town. People come to Grimsby for the sense of community, and we would like to keep our community the way it is. We appreciate people wanting to live here. We welcome people to come in and move here, but they can't change the community that they want to move into. Sorry. I'm really feeling emotional about this, and I really hope that you take this into consideration.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else from the audience wish to speak? Thanks. Yep, just come to the podium, please.
Okay. I'd just like to say that this house is about 3 times larger than any other houses, and at the back, the bedroom has a picture window which looks directly into the neighbor's bedroom. Now they also have a covered porch with a balcony above, so we are not going to be having any privacy at all, the neighbors or any of the rest of us, because that will then become their backyard, this covered porch. So I would also like to know how it got to this point. Who didn't do their job? Why was this house built and then they asked for variances after the fact? The whole shell of the house is there. The roof is on. All that has to happen is the windows go in. Why did it get this far? Someone in the planning department or whichever department looks after this should have been checking on this. Sorry, but somebody didn't do their job. And I'm very disturbed that this is happening.
Okay, thank you. Just maybe staff just want to address the comments quickly.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to let the committee and the members know that it is the responsibility of either the applicant or the owner to notify us at certain stages of construction. So that's provincial law. So we issue hundreds of permits a year. So we do attachments onto the permit and notify that they are required to notify us at certain stages. That failed to occur. And as like some of the neighbors have said, apparently it happened quick. So from the demolition, I did check with my staff, and they were aware that there was calls, but again, there was a building permit. So our staff advised the neighbors that yes, there is an active permit, and we would. I'm expecting my staff to let the public know that we will be doing inspections, but again, the inspections are based on notification from the owner or the applicant. So that's if you have any other further questions regarding that.
Okay, thank you. Any last comments from the applicant? Or actually, we've got one more, member of the public. Yeah, if you want, ma'am.
Do the public.
Yeah, public. Sorry, the public, and then, sorry, sir.
Mr. Netta.
Mr. Netta? Yeah, we're just going to let the public, yeah.
Let you wrap up.
And then let you wrap up. Thanks. Sorry, ma'am. Go ahead. And just need your name and address for the record, please. Thank you.
Pauline Walton, 37 Viking Drive. Just a couple of comments. You had a concern about the plans, and you were kind of questioning that. Based on my understanding, inspections are supposed to be done at every step, right? As you were commenting. Now, this monstrosity is up. Were no inspections done at the time that the framing for the footings were done? When the cement was poured? So how do we know that somewhere down the line, that house isn't going to shift? Just one little comment. The other one is, in your report, you indicate that the house kind of fits in with the rest of the neighborhood. I'd be curious to find out how you define the neighborhood. What were the borders? Was it Viking, Woodlawn, a portion of Lakeside, Forest, or did it also encompass Shoreline, where you've got multi-million-dollar homes? Because it definitely does not fit in our little square. So just my comments. Okay. And I've been in that house, my place, since 1985. So okay. It does not fit in.
Okay, thank you. Maybe we'll just get staff to address those comments really quick. And then we'll...
Through you, Mr. Chair. So regarding the inspections, as like I mentioned earlier, there was no inspections. There was a stop work order placed. Construction hasn't proceeded since April the 10th. So the owner is aware that there is remedial measures to be taken in order to have the footings certified. That could be done in a number of different manners. We haven't decided that yet. That will be determined if this is approved and a revised permit's issued. Then we can deal with the provincially legislated inspections at that time.
Okay, thank you. And I think there's one other question that would be actually for planning, and that was what criteria or parameters did they use to evaluate the compatibility?
Yeah, I think the question was, through you, Chair, what is the neighborhood and encompass? Does it encompass the immediate houses on either side? How far afield can we go? The neighborhood is the neighborhood. It goes well beyond just the street. It also includes shoreline or lake, not shoreline, lakeshore. Lakeside Drive, sorry. Lakeside Drive and you know, several blocks around the site. So that's what we would consider the neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. Applicant, if you have any, sorry, yeah, public, we have one more chance. Sure. If you're.
I also want to say.
You can just actually go to the microphone. Yeah, thanks.
That this guy had no permits to do anything. And he never intended to do it properly. And that's obvious just by how quick that this house went up. So, once again, I just don't think that you folk can let him get away with this. He had no intention of following the rules that everybody here that's ever done anything that needed a permit, applied for a permit, paid for it, and waited the time and did it properly, except for this guy from out of town. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Just the applicant, if you just want to wrap up some comments.
Just to briefly speak to the privacy, so the side walls of the second story do have no windows on them whatsoever, so we have planned to ensure privacy for the neighbors on the sides. And there is also a right-of-way on the west side, which will also provide an additional privacy buffer. At the rear of the property, there are some rather large trees, which you'll see on the aerial view. This will provide privacy for the neighbor at the rear. I'd also like to note that the house behind 30 Viking is actually sort of in line with the same height as what we're proposing. And then with regards to the foundation, we did have a structural engineer attend the site who can certainly provide a report to the building department.
Yeah, I just want to address the comment about the rear window, because I was actually up there today, and even in the midst of summer with the full foliage, I could see directly into the backyard of their full property. I'm not sure what the number is on, I think, Forest Drive. So I'm going to disagree with you there. Any other questions or comments from the committee? That being said, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to make some comments too. I mean, I've heard a lot of the information back and forth, and I think, to be honest, if this had come on paper, not seeing the building, I probably would have supported it, because we've done other variances and approved other variances like this. However, because we have the benefit of now seeing what the impact is, now you get to recognize the magnitude of these variances when considered together, combined. So we look at 15 Nassau earlier this evening. I call that gentle infill. They came on it had a similar bungalow. It had a lot coverage requirement that went from 25 to 22. No height requirement, meets the height, and then so does this technically, although I disagree with that. And it was a backyard setback. That's a reasonable infill. When you see this one in reality, never mind the history of how it got there, I have a problem with it. I think the cumulative impact of the three variances, or four, combined with the fact that he's pushing the envelope on the height, it doesn't match the average grade. It's not measured from the average grade. It's a single point, which exacerbates it, if I can say that correctly. So I think cumulatively, it isn't appropriate for the development use of the property. It isn't minor in nature, and it doesn't meet the intent of the official plan and zoning bylaw, so I can't support it at all. And if I were to support it, it would be to a one-floor plan, whereas I wouldn't have a problem with the coverage increase, the setbacks, if it was limited to a one-floor plan. And we've done that before. We've put conditions on that where they're asking for higher coverage and setbacks, but we said, well, you're not going to get the height that is allowed under the bylaw. So I think, to summarize, I can't support it because the cumulative impact of all these, when viewed combined together, it's just too much. If it was the last monster house in the neighborhood, yeah, but the first one in, it's not appropriate at all. So maybe it's a timing issue. Never mind the fact that he's flagrantly abused the process, ignored it, did it quickly, flagrantly, and I can't support that as well. So it goes to the credibility of the applicant too, that they're flouting you're asking us to do you a favor with the bylaw variance, then follow the rules like everybody else. So that's my comment.
Okay, thank you. And you just, I'm going to reiterate what you said about just the cumulative effect of the variances. I just sort of see, variance, if this was a one-story, there would be no issue. But as soon as you start stretching things one way, it's a give and take. You just can't be all take. So, yeah, I'm in full agreement with those comments. That being said, any further questions or comments from the committee? Seeing none, is there a motion on this application and the reasons therefore?
Okay, a motion. I find it resolved that minor variance application A2224 for 30 Viking Drive to permit a minimum front yard of 7.1 meters, whereas minimum front yard of 10.85 meters is required, as per section 721, table 11 in zoning bylaw 1445 as amended, to permit a minimum rear yard setback of 7 meters, whereas minimum rear yard setback of 7.7 meters is required as per section 7.21, table 11 in zoning bylaw 1445 as amended, to permit a maximum yard encroachment into the required rear yard of 0.7 meters for a chimney breast, whereas a maximum yard encroachment of 0.5 meters is permitted as per section 4.9A in zoning bylaw 1445 as amended, to permit a maximum lot coverage of 32%, whereas maximum lot coverage of 25% is required as per section 7.2.1, table 11, and schedule 5A in zoning bylaw 1445 as amended, be refused. And that is because it doesn't, in my opinion, meet the 4 tests that was outlined well by committee member Kevin. And so that's what I'm going to propose.
Okay, thank you. Do you have a seconder on that motion? Okay, Kevin. Any further discussion on the motion? That's being said, all those in favor say aye or raise your hand. Any opposed? So the motion was carried, the application was denied, and it's subject to a 20-day appeal period. Thank you. That being our final application of the evening, is there any other business of the committee? Seeing none. The next meeting of the committee adjustment is August 20th, 2024. Thank you all for attending. Thank you. Meeting is adjourned.